What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. So on tonight's episode, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Mati Greenspan, the senior market analyst at eToro. We had an opportunity to talk about fundamentals versus technicals, his view on the current, bear market based on his experience in the past, and he also reveals his personal portfolio. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, definitely check this out. Yeah, let's jump right into it, man. So for everyone out there, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your background and everything? And how'd you get into this crazy space?
Sure. My name is Mati Greenspan. I'm the senior market analyst at eToro. I come from a strong financial and trading background. My grandfather is a self-made billionaire. We always talk about finances, around the dinner table and investing and stuff like that. I've been paper trading since I was 12. So I was like, back then we didn't have like online trading. So I would like open the Wall Street Journal, and I love tracking the price of gold. So I would look, what's the price today and stuff like that. I got a job in online trading for an online broker around 2008. So I had front row tickets to that whole 2008 financial crisis and stuff like that. And then I've just been in it ever since. And then when I came to eToro about mid 2012, and a few months later, the CEO Yoni Asya sent out a blog about Bitcoin. I was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. And I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what was it that drew you to it? Was it the volatility? Do you believe in Bitcoin, or is this just an instrument for you to just make more dollars? I mean, is it a mix of both? What is your actual view on the overall space?
Yeah, so I've had a pessimistic view. I mean, obviously my introduction to the financial markets in 2008, I immediately recognized that this is the new form of money. This is the money of the future. This is how, we're going to transact and trade and everything like that. And, eToro kind of took it one step further, where we said, okay, this is blockchain, and, all of the stuff that we're seeing, this tokenization and things like that, that was in our pipeline, in our, like a pipe dream for us, since that time. The volatility, that came in, I guess mid 2013 to late 2013. Then that's when we added Bitcoin onto the platform. We were one of the first ever to add Bitcoin as a CFD. And obviously that was very exciting. I remember doing a whole analysis about, I don't know if you remember, Cyprus had like this haircut or bail-in.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Back at that time, I was like way too concerned with like partying and stuff, man. I was, you know what I mean? Like I was just a total wild animal. But yeah, I remember hearing about it. So
I hear that. Yeah. So it was basically, the European Union starting to clamp down on regulation, and there was a lot of money coming from Russia that was being funneled through Cyprus, and all of a sudden it got locked down. And that had a very positive effect on Bitcoin, because Russia and they suddenly needed a new way to channel their money, and we saw the effect quite clearly. And then when Mount Gox happened, February 2014, the whole industry kind of went dark. Bitcoin was still trading on the eToro platform, but nobody really woke up about it again until 2016. So we've seen bulls, and we've seen bull markets and bear markets, and that's how we look at the different cycles.
So, for people who just joined, I know every day on my channel there's always new subscribers, and some of them are fresh in. I have people telling me like I just bought my first Bitcoin a week ago, so there's some really, really new people to the space. And what would you say to them this time? I mean, you've been through boom and busts before. Is this different this time? I mean, now we have the introduction of the futures, which conveniently debuted at the all-time high. I mean, is this going to keep it suppressed? Are those days of parabolic growths over? Is history going to maybe not repeat but rhyme? Is it essentially, is it different this time, I think, is the question.
Yeah, I think it is a bit different. I think the entire industry has gone through this sort of gentrification. 2017, especially late 2017 with the ICO hype. I mean, that was just complete madness and craziness. And we had people, I mean, especially in the last quarter, just such an influx of customers. It was like such a thing to witness. Like the entire company was all of a sudden in kind of emergency operations mode, where we'd like shut down the entire marketing team because we don't need them. People
Yeah,
are
you
coming
don't
by
need it.
themselves. The marketing team all of a sudden went to help onboard new customers, and I myself, I was on the chat, the customer service chat for 3 hours a day because they couldn't handle the load. So I just said, I'll take the entire chat for 3 hours. That was such like every single person, 20 people at a time, every single person, their $200 is like the most important thing in the world. Um, are we going to see something like that again? I think it's possible, but I don't think it's like it, the way that market cycles work is a bit more gradual than most people think. So right now we are in a bear cycle. We saw some positive movement over the last few days, and I'm very happy about that. We saw volumes coming back into the market for the first time in months, which is wonderful. But you don't go from bear market to moon overnight.
Mhm.
The bull market of 2017 actually started in 2015, right? Once there was that quietness, the market was able to bottom out very gradually. If you look at the chart over that time period, you'll see that like it just kind of did some gradual gains, like 1% or 2% in a month, as people started using it for its original for its original purpose. And then you got to the point where it's okay, 5% a month, 10% a month, and then all of a sudden, 2017, it started going, okay, 5% a week,
Mhm.
10% a week, right? And by the end of 2017, like 50% a day, right?
Yeah, it was
Like,
madness. Yeah.
yeah. So that type of optimism and exuberance, it takes a while to build up, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So I think that the best thing in any case for the most healthy way for Bitcoin going forward would be this kind of more gradual rise. The volatility when you see 20,000 coming back down, it's fun to run up, but it's not fun to come down, right? When you see 20,000 turning into 6,000, it doesn't give a good name for the industry. It doesn't,
Yeah. Well, in traditional markets, a bear market is when you're down 20%. I mean, 20% is like we do that every day over here, right? In crypto. So it's almost like you can't even use the traditional tools and terminology. I mean, let me know what you say. I mean, you do analysis for a living,
yeah,
right?
right.
Can you actually seriously take traditional, indicators and tools and apply them, or does it work as well, or are the fundamentals a factor as well, or?
Yeah. So tech, generally speaking, the cryptos tend to follow the technical analysis a lot more than the fundamental analysis. I mean, we've seen, during the bull run, for example, September 2017, China all of a sudden announced no more crypto, right? They shut down the ICO market completely, and they ostensibly closed down all of the crypto exchanges. Um, and that had barely, it barely tickled the market. The market just kept going from there. It didn't really matter, and that was a fundamental update that was huge.
Mhm.
And because there was momentum and the momentum indicators were flashing red hot, people just kept buying. And then we have, during this bear market, we had some fundamental updates that were simply extraordinary. And they barely moved the market, or even the market had an adverse effect where it went down instead of up.
Right, right. I mean, the news used to, the news would shake the markets. Now it's like no one even bats an eye anymore. It's just you get so desensitized to it after a while, you don't even care.
That's correct, right? So I believe that the market cycles play in a lot more. Um, as far as technical indicators go, I mean, we have, let's say, I don't know if I can share my screen here. Is it possible to share a
Yeah,
screen?
there should be a
Uh,
share screen on the bottom. Um,
Share. There we go.
all right.
Cool. Can you see my chart here then?
Yes.
Okay, let me just make the browser window a bit bigger. Okay, so here is Bitcoin's chart, and this is 1 day per candlestick. So you can see that huge run up, and then the bear market over here. So the most basic type of technical analysis, I think, and because crypto is a new industry, it really does tend to listen to the more simple technical analysis. I mean, Fibonacci indicators and the more complicated stuff, ADX and things like that. I think that they don't have as much of an impact here.
Mm-hmm.
So this blue line is called the 200-day moving average. So it just shows the average price over the last 200 days. And here you can see it supporting the price in 2017 throughout the bull run. Q4 things got detached, right? That was the bubble, the big bubble area. And then once it crossed over that blue line, that 200-day moving average, that kind of solidified the bear market. You see it testing it here. You know, the market was not able to come up above it here or here or here. And by the time it just got here, it was just like total capitulation. Where it's like, nah, we don't even have a chance. Let's not even try.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, you know, a strong move above that could change sentiment a lot, and then people would start thinking that it's, you know, this is a bull market again. And that right now is sitting at around $5,092 per coin. And then the other type of analysis that we do is just you know, freehand lines. Like they're called support and resistance lines. So a big one is a psychological level where you see a big round number, so $5,000 per coin. See, you notice how that played a big part in the 2017 run-up, right, where it bounced off of it, and then once it broke through 5,000, you know, you get these headlines flashing, right? Bitcoin is above 5,000, right, and all of the mainstream media picks it up, and that's when, you know, that's when things really took off. On the other hand, once it broke down below that, you know, that was a pretty bearish indicator where people just kind of add it. Is like it has the opposite effect. And then you can draw another line on the top here, and this is called a bearish wedge or a descending triangle. This has played a big part in Bitcoin. Well, we can actually move that down now to $3,000, which is the next level. See, that's the same. This is $3,000 per coin, and you can see how it played that big part. It took 2 months to break through it in 2017 during the bull run, and now it's tested it again as the bottom of the market. So this is a bearish indicator. That's why I keep saying this. The bear market is not over yet, even though we did have a few nice days. You know, we still have to break through that upper line before we can say, okay, we're out of the woods.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about the fact that currently we've actually been having higher lows, though? I've heard some positivity about that. What are your thoughts in relation to that specifically?
Yeah, and it's great, and it's great that it's happening on strong volumes too. You know, one of the websites that I like to look is coincheckup.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like the overall volumes across crypto exchanges. Should be over here, and that's the number that I'm watching right there, which is the 24-hour volume. Right now, $33 billion over the last 24 hours. And to put that into context, I mean, let's just look at the last year. So in general, volumes is a very strong indicator when you're looking at markets, because when something happens on low volume, you could just toss it up to low liquidity. So things can get slippery when there isn't liquidity in the market. So take a look, you know, April, you know, volumes were down to less than $10 billion a day. And then, you know, by the end of April, that's when that massive run up happened. You know, it was around 34 billion. And right now, you can see that we're just at like the largest volumes we've seen, you know, since you know since the bubble. But you know, if you think about it, and here's the fun part, the daily volume across crypto exchanges only ever climbed up above $1 billion for the first time in April of 2017, right? So that's around here, right? April of 2017 was the first time it ever reached above $1 billion. So even though we say, yeah, $10 billion, you know, that's kind of a market slump, we have to think about how far this market has come in such a short amount of time. That's just less than 2 years ago. This market has come out of nowhere, and now we're seeing, you know, a steady $20-30 billion a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a question too. As someone who actually deals with more of these, I would say you deal with institutions more than anyone than I do, and you know, investors. What are their take on it specifically? Obviously we had the massive volume of the futures, and although I didn't know what they were specifically, a lot of people were assuming they were longs. But what is
Hmm.
the opinion of because everyone's always like, when's Wall Street coming in? That's like the big thing. I mean, are these guys like actually saying this is a good opportunity, or are you mostly hearing like, nah, I'm not touching it, or what is the overall sentiment out there?
So I believe that everybody is a little bit curious about crypto at the moment. You'll have your strong naysayers, right? But the people that are the loudest are the people that have a strong opinion on either end, right? And that's true in politics or just about anything, right? The world is made up vast majority of people who are kind of in the middle. So when people see these type of headlines, they do get curious, but obviously with a bit of skepticism as well, right? They see opinions flying back and forth, both negative and positive, and I think that most pragmatic people, and I think that most investors that I've spoken with have been kind of, okay, what is this about? And then like let me start approaching it, from a curiosity point of view, because there is fascination. Um, and then very gradually. So, and that's one of the main unique things about crypto is the volatility, as you mentioned as well. That actually is an incredibly powerful tool for asset managers. So if you think about somebody who manages a $1 billion portfolio, right? So obviously they're not going to take that $1 billion and put it on crypto, right? It wouldn't make sense,
Yeah.
because you can make 1,000%, but you can also lose 1,000%. You could also lose 100%. You can lose up to 100%,
Yeah.
right? So the way that they generally do it when they're curious is they're just going to put a very small amount of money in. So you probably, I think you even covered Morgan Creek's, $40 million investment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Way to go, pump.
Yeah.
Um,
I got to get him on the channel next. I got to reach out to him. I'm trying to reach
do
out to
it,
more like
man.
seasoned veterans. Like I want to get people that have been in the space longer, way longer than me on the channel, so we can really get more of this broader spectrum of what's going on. Because like you said, these guys they're dipping their toes in it. The kids are gambling on the altcoins and whatever. But it's tough, man. Because I've seen some coins literally pump like 120% only to like instantly dump 90 like within the and it's like, where did you buy, did you sell, and
Right,
it's
right,
crazy.
right,
So
right. So when you have an asset manager looking at that space, you have to, like you said, those are the kids, right? These are the adults in the room. And when you take $40 million for them, we're talking about two public pension funds, and that $40 million represents about 0.7% of their total assets under management, right?
hmm,
So they're just nibbling, they're just trying it out, see how it goes. Now, the fun part is, if you have a year like, 2018, assets go down 80%, it's okay. You've only got 0.7% invested. If your portfolio performs as a portfolio should, 10% to 20% a year, you're really fine. Nobody's even going to notice that 0.6% is missing.
right,
But if you have a year like 2017,
yeah.
think about it, right? All of a sudden, instead of your 10 to 20% annually, you've made 60 to 80%, which is
Hmm.
unheard of in financial circles,
No, I
right?
know, I know. We think this is normal, but it's not. It's funny because you hear people in crypto, and they always refer to like, oh well, I'm just playing it safe. I'm just going with Bitcoin, and it's like, outside of crypto, no one says that, right? like I'm playing it safe. I'm gonna put most of my portfolio in Bitcoin. Like it's just a completely different
Yeah.
world we live in. It's very it's hard sometimes. You get really sucked into it, and you forget how small the space is. Just looking at the market cap of the total space, I don't know what it is. This morning it was like 126 or 128. We never even broke a trillion. We almost did. We tried to, but we couldn't quite do it. So
Exactly. So this is my portfolio at the moment. This is the way that my portfolio is made up. Um, so I don't know if you're familiar with the eToro platform at all. So we have a lot of different types of assets that you can invest in. Gold, Generally like to have about 5 to 15% of my assets in gold. You can see, if we break it down, also, I just want to show you the percentages that we're talking about. I'm quite aggressive on cryptos.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see about 24% of my total allocation is into crypto.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I'm not using any leverage. So if you break it down by exposure, it's a lot less. Around 8% of my total exposure is on cryptos at the moment.
Oh, so you're not like BitMEX 100x leveraging right now? You're just chilling, just hanging out?
This is aggressive, my friend.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
look at,
yeah.
if you talk about to a portfolio manager and you say you have this ultra high risk asset like crypto, so crypto's like cinnamon, okay?
Okay.
Do you cook at all?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
ever cooked?
Actually, I do. I mostly do home cooking. I saves on the bill, so I do it.
Excellent. And do you use cinnamon when you cook?
Sometimes.
Right. And when you use cinnamon, how much do you use?
Well, not too much. It's a little strong, so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cinnamon is basically it's considered a volatile ingredient. The reason is because on a molecular level, it's very complex. It's very complex,
Mm-hmm.
and it can have different interactions based on what you're mixing it with. And basically, if you put a little bit of cinnamon into your portfolio, you basically spice the whole thing up, right? But if you put a cupful of cinnamon,
Yeah.
right, you ruin the whole thing, and and then you're taking on ultra risk. You ever
Yeah.
heard of the cinnamon
I
challenge?
was just gonna bring that up, man. I remember that lady. She was like, "Oh yeah, cinnamon, that's a breeze," and she like eats it and just starts like, "Oh, it's so funny." I was gonna bring that up too, but
There you go.
there's another question too. I think a lot of people would be curious about as well. I mean, as far as like a bottoming out type thing, and I'm not asking you to give a prediction. I know nobody really knows. And you said that you do follow more technicals than fundamentals, but for example, we do have things like the Bitcoin halving, right? And we've looked
Hmm.
at it previously, and you can kind of see that like 1 year before the
Yeah.
halving is when we start to see that kind of like it starts to bottom out and curve up. Now, is that
Yeah.
something like now that
Litecoin is doing it right now.
yeah, yeah, which is crazy. But now, do you think like
Litecoin's halving is in August, so we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, so and this latest run, I don't know how much you've been following my analysis, but I've kind of pinpointed this to a shortage in Ethereum, where we have a lot less Ethereum coming online per day. So supply and demand always wins out in the markets. It doesn't matter what the sentiment is. If you have a shortage of supply or you have a surplus of demand, that's what drives prices at the end of the day when it comes down to it. So um, in a way, I don't know, what Satoshi Nakamoto's thinking was when he decided, okay, we should have it right every so often. Possibly it would have been better to say, okay, let's drop it by 25% each
mhm,
time,
mhm.
right? That would have been much stronger monetary policy. Um, but when you have all of a sudden half the amount coming online, uh, that creates demand pressure. Yeah.
Pretty instantaneously, actually. So it's
No,
like you said,
not
it's
instantaneously. Instantaneously would imply that it happens afterward.
okay.
In the halvening event, the demand pressure comes before the actual halvening.
The anticipation leading up to it.
Anticipation.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
because
right.
people
Well, that's why
start
we were
looking
saying a
forward.
year leading up to it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So now let's say an average person is interested, but obviously they're not skilled. They don't have technical analysis skills, right? I mean, what would
Right.
you I kind of just tell people, you could always dollar cost average, although I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you to
Yes.
do that. But if you don't
Right.
have any other strategy, I mean, what would you suggest for people that are interested, that want to get in?
Yeah. So dollar cost average is a good idea. I agree with that, and specifically people who are have a month to month paycheck. Sometimes it makes sense to take part of that and invest it into something,
Hmm.
right? But my main suggestion is, it's not just about crypto, and I'm happy to see an entire generation of people inspired to invest. And I do believe that crypto is the asset class of the millennial generation. But I think that the more people learn about different types of investments, the stronger they're going to be overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you saw in my portfolio, I've got commodities and ETFs and indices, and I know that those assets are probably foreign to a lot of people who just came into this for, Bitcoin or Litecoin or XRP.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is just the more you learn about that stuff, the better position that you're going to be in. If you had a diversified portfolio, I know that if you'd invested X amount over X amount of time, you get kind of lost in that. But for the long term, you'll always be better off with a strong diversification in your account.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on? I'm just curious because you find that the longer people have been in, and even myself, like last year, I'll be honest, I was looking at like 100 different projects, and this year I literally focus on like mostly Bitcoin. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not doing it for any particular reason. It's just that I look at I convert back and forth between my Bitcoin comparative to my dollar comparative, and you realize that damn, I mean, okay, yes, we lost money, so holding wasn't a good idea, but had you held Bitcoin, you wouldn't be nearly as in troubled waters as you have been with some of these altcoins. So do you think that any of these altcoins have any future viability whatsoever, or are they all just a graveyard of crap coins ready to go?
Okay.
You know how I mean, because like you go
No,
online and
that's a
like
good
people say every
question.
coin in the top 10 is shit coin for better lack of better words. So
Yeah. I use that term quite frequently too. I'll
yeah.
just use an emoji instead. Um, so one thing that we do need to remember about ICOs and new tokens is that each one in and of itself should be treated as a startup. And we're talking about, pre-seed funding projects, meaning that so the ICO has done something wonderful. So venture capital has basically been in charge of new companies that come online for the past 2 decades, right? So these are people who manage billion-dollar portfolio, multi-billion-dollar portfolios, and then they'll invest in 100 or 200 startups, right? And if even one of them, makes it to the level of Twitter or Facebook, they've got it made, right? That's what VCs do. So the ICO market has opened that up to the general public. Issues with that are that the general public is not as well versed in spotting a scam or understanding what is the market need for a specific project. How much funding does the project need? I mean, we've seen, some projects that are okay projects. There might be a market need, there might not be, and they manage to raise 100 times more money than they would ever need to use to get their feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That would never happen in a VC
And
environment.
sometimes these, I mean, you're seeing now they're getting better because they've seen a lot of the criticisms of the earlier ICOs, but some of them were raising such astronomical, raises that you're almost setting yourself up for failure because how can you possibly, have that valuation?
Yeah,
What do you have? And
right.
you see a lot of the more successful ones. They actually didn't raise a lot, and that actually gave them the room to grow. You know.
Right. Right. Some of my favorite projects still are um, didn't raise that much money, and I'm very happy about that. The other issue with the ICO market is that utility tokens are an entirely new thing in the world. So when you have a VC environment, they've got good lawyers, right? That when the startup goes wild and makes it big time, they're going to cash in on that. And uh, the way that utility tokens, they have a different kind of economics behind them, where the utility token itself doesn't necessarily promise the investor anything.
Yeah.
I like some of these utility tokens, but quite honestly, even if the project that's backing them goes super duper viral, they can issue more tokens, or they don't even need to necessarily use the token itself in the way that people are expecting. A lot of people come in and they go, okay, yeah, this is a great project, therefore I'm going to buy X dollars worth of that token, and then if the project goes really big, I'm gonna cash in. It doesn't always work like that. So
Mm-hmm.
for utility tokens, it's just part of the ecosystem. So it's basically like saying, okay, uh, somebody's gonna and this actually happened, right? I'm gonna open up an online casino. It's gonna be huge, and we're gonna make it big. We're gonna have 1 billion customers. You want to buy some casino chips, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
uh, yeah, if I'm using an online casino, I'm going to need some chips, right? But don't sell them to me at a 50% discount now for a promise of a casino that might be built in the future. I don't know what they're going to be worth then.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I'm not going to name names right now, but I've seen a few projects even kind of like not even use their tokens anymore. Like they just actually kind of are openly like, yeah, they were just fundraising mechanisms and we don't really have a use for them, which is a problem.
Yep.
And the other thing I wanted to touch on when you were talking about scams, I see that word thrown around a lot. There are scams. Like BitConnect was a
Yes.
scam. It was a Ponzi scheme and they ran off with money. But I don't think that a project failing is a scam. I've actually seen some
Correct.
projects that actually just are really bad at managing their funds. And they
Correct.
just had to just cut operations and that was it. That doesn't make them a
Yep.
scam. It just makes
I
them
agree.
just poorly managed, I guess. And I think sometimes we throw that word around way too much in the space, because imagine that in traditional, startups. They're not a scam because they failed, right? They
Right.
just, couldn't pull it off.
100% agree with you. And I think that when we're talking about the next cycle, and I think that there will be a next cycle, I think that people who went through that 2017, are going to be kind of the leaders and show the newbies, right? Okay, hey guys, this is how you spot a good project. This is how you spot a bad project. How are the tokens going to be used, right? And that's throughout 2017. Everybody who came up to me with an ICO, how are you going to use? How are the tokens going to be used, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like my number one question. And if you couldn't explain to me that in 2 sentences, no, right? Don't touch it. And I think that's going to be much more prevalent during the next run. And that's a beautiful thing where, VC funding is all of a sudden open to the general public. Anybody with, $50 in a crypto wallet can suddenly participate in a brand new project. Uh, that's truly awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a completely, like you said, it's brand new, this utility. Even just Bitcoin itself only being a decade old. I mean, you consider gold's been around for, over 5,000 years or well, longer than that, but since we've been using it as, as a way of, store value, currency, whatever. So it's definitely interesting. And, we are the pioneers. And I always tell people when you think about the term pioneers, who are the pioneers? Well, they're the guys that don't have the map. They don't know where they're going. They're getting shot in the back. They're getting shot in the back with the arrows, right? Well,
Covered
who
wagon, sure, yeah.
exactly? And who are the ones that really reap the benefits, right? Like we come and now, oh, I got my GPS, I got my weapons, like I'm prepared, right? But we're just kind of like jumping in the mix of this and trying to figure it all out. So it's very
Yeah.
risky. It's very risky to be in this right now, but I mean, me personally, I believe in the space not just from a financial perspective
It's a
because
beautiful analogy.
oh, thanks, man. But it's also it's not just that. It's also that I really think it's gonna change the world. And not to get all preachy, but even just when you look at things like Venezuela and what they're doing with the local bitcoins, and how
Yep.
that's helping them, and even just I mean, the guys are using Nano, they're
And
using
Indonesia.
Dash, they're using
Indonesia's the next one.
yeah, I mean, they're just using anything at this point, anything that's better than what they have, So
Seriously.
I do see the value in that. But as far as us Westerners over here, just kind of, well, I know you're actually not. You're in Israel, right? That's where you're.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um.
I'm from the West Coast, so
Yeah. So like the
you can call me a
Western,
Westerner.
the Western perspective of it is more of like we're just trying to like make some money over here. Like we don't really, yeah, the dollar loses like 2 to 3% annually.
Gold
Like
rush.
so. But what do
Yeah.
you think about the kind of? I don't want to keep you on here. I know you got to go. It's the end of the day
Oh,
for
it's
you
all
over there.
good.
But I just wanted to kind of ask you before you go. As far as projections, do you like what are you looking for? Do you think that the cycle? I mean, because clearly crypto tends to move faster. The cycles seem to be a little bit quicker. So, what are you kind of looking at if we're gonna just technicals, not fundamentals? What do you really when you see this thing turning around?
So, as far as that's concerned, and um, they actually are. I published a chart on my Twitter account just earlier today, exactly on this topic.
I'll be sure to retweet it. Make sure I get it out
Yeah,
there.
this is I made it on TradingView. What I did here was I wanted to line up the cycles between the stock market and Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the correlations on a day-to-day basis, there is none. There's nothing to look for there. But if you look at the long-term cycles, I'm just gonna share this with you now.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is the blue line is Bitcoin, and the red line is the Dow Jones. Now I had to make a few tweaks on the chart. So for example, the Dow Jones is on the left and Bitcoin is on the right. Obviously, if you wouldn't split the x-axis, the Dow Jones will just be a flat line against Bitcoin, right? Because we're talking about, tens of thousands of percent gains, whereas the Dow Jones only did like 80% in that time frame. But what I wanted to do, I just wanted to see the direction of travel. The other tweak that I made was I made it a logarithmic chart, which are extremely popular with cryptos, because logarithmic basically it lets you see percentage movements better. So it accentuates the percentage movement. And otherwise, Bitcoin would be flat over here. And actually, we can see the spike, of 2013, and then that bear market there pretty clearly on the chart. And this actually lines up with everything that's been happening with central banks. Since the financial crisis, the central banks have made it very easy to borrow money, and they've basically flooded the world with extra value. And obviously, people who are huge crypto advocates, or a lot of crypto advocates, are going to say, okay, that's a problem, and a lot of economists would agree with them. But what we can see is the effect that it has on investor sentiment. And just check out 2017, right? Even 2016, right? Where they're both traveling together throughout 2016, throughout 2017. And then in 2018, early in 2018, the Fed kind of changed their mind. They said, okay, we're not going to provide such easy money to the market. We're going to make it a little bit tougher for people to invest. And the stock market started to fall. And Bitcoin fell with it, right? In early 2019, so just at the beginning of this year, just 2 months ago, the Fed changed their minds again, and they saw the stock markets falling. They saw this huge crash over here, and then they said, "Okay, you know what? We were just kidding. We're really going to make it easy for people again
Just
to borrow
kidding,
money."
guys.
Right? Just
after everybody just lost all their money, we were just kidding. So
volatility went through the roof. Warren Buffett lost a lot. We are on air here, yes. And then you can see here's where the Fed changed their mind and the stocks, recovered pretty quickly, right? Bitcoin it's not as quick to react, right? Bitcoin traders are not listening to the Fed for the most part. But you can see here, right, that now this upward incline started just over the last few weeks that you mentioned, where we're seeing much more gradual, much more steady inclines and much more consistently. So I do believe that these market cycles, the availability of cash to investors and to regular people, has a profound impact on pricing. And this is one of the things that I'm watching as far as trying to determine when is a good point to invest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. So I really appreciate you for coming on the channel. This was really awesome. I didn't know, did you have anything else that you kind of wanted to share with us before we go? Or it's been...
I love your channel, man.
Oh,
I watched a few of your videos in preparation, and I think that's it's really amazing what you're doing, and definitely keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, like I said, people ask me why I chose to do the type of content I do, and it was just simply because I remember when I first got in, I could not keep up with this stuff. It's just unbelievably difficult as a person with a 9-to-5 to keep up with crypto. And, when I actually had some time off in the winter of 2017, I had a few months off of work because we were seasonally unemployed. I ended up just making a channel and pretty much putting out the content that I wanted to see myself, you know? But, you know, now that you did touch on that topic, though, the one thing, interestingly, was there were a lot of us that were, you know, we started YouTube channels, and we all got caught up in the hype. Definitely. Every single one of us. There was no one that wasn't caught up in it. But I do think that moving forward, especially with other channels like myself or even you have a big influence as well. You know, you have a Twitter following and people know who you are. And I think that it's very important that we keep very level-headed this time around, and you know, we help people to make the better decisions and don't make the same mistakes that we did. And I think that's the most important thing, getting back to that pioneer thing. So I just want to say, you know, thank you, Matt, for what you do. How do you pronounce you pronounce it with an accent, right? It's
Mati.
Mati. I just been saying Matty. I'm just New
Don't worry about
New
it.
Yorker. I just say it like a lazy New Yorker, but you know, it's just I really appreciate.
You wouldn't be the first.
I really appreciate what you do, man, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the channel, and thank you for, you know, sharing your knowledge with everyone. And I'd be more than happy, you know, maybe a few months down the line, when maybe the markets get crazy, we'll revisit this and kind of see how things played out versus how we were looking at it now. You know, it could be fun. So
yeah, anytime. I'm very happy to. We'll do it.
Awesome. So thank you so much again, and definitely appreciate it. And guys, if you haven't checked out Mati Greenspan over on Twitter, definitely check him out. Pretty cool dude. And that's it for today. So my name is K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. Until next time, stay crypto. And peace out.
Thank you.